Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the second in a series of webinars following the release of our report, Understanding the Potential of Licensing Frameworks in Teams to Tackle Modern Slavery. So I'm pleased to share that the full report is now available on the Shiva Foundation website to download. So if you haven't already, please do go download the full report, which is freely available to everyone. So my name is Dami, and I'm Senior Program Manager at Shiva Foundation, and I've been involved in this project from quite early on. For those of you that did attend the first webinar on Tuesday, the first few slides will be repetitive, so please do bear with us as we share this information again for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time. The report that we are sharing builds on Shiva Foundation's experience coordinating the Hertfordshire Modern Slavery Partnership and the 2022 Self-Assessment Scorecard and Supporting Guidance for Local Authorities, which provides practical steps for local authorities to assess their own modern slavery risk within their operations, but also within their supply chains and across other areas of work. The licensing report makes recommendations for strengthening statutory guidance and explores opportunities for licensing authorities and practitioners to utilize skills at their disposal to enhance local modern slavery responses. And the report was compiled following an extensive evidence gathering period between April and August across 2022. We conducted roundtables with over 30 stakeholders across 15 different local authorities involving different regulatory agencies such as the Environment Agency and the Gang Masters and Labour Abuse Authority, as well as some other non-statutory partners. To make this report, inspiration was also taken from case studies, utilising local licensing frameworks that address anti-social behaviour and crime in the nighttime economy. The project was funded by the Home Office through the Modern Slavery Prevention Fund. We're very grateful to West Sussex Community Safety Team for their active involvement in the project, and I think a few of them might be on the call today. All the professionals and consultants that contributed to this project to ensure it is as accurate as possible. Thank you so much for all of your input. Just to say that there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation, so please, throughout the entire presentation, please do put as many questions as you can think of using the QA function, and I will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end. If I don't have the answers, I'll be sure to get those to you by email as well, so please do ask as many questions as you can. Okay, cool. So just to give another overview of modern slavery, as I'm sure we have various professionals from various different backgrounds or departments on the call. Modern slavery is an umbrella term that was adopted by the UK government in 2015 to coordinate the prevention and prosecution of four major crimes: slavery, human trafficking, forced labour, and domestic servitude. And if you are aware, it does cover various different manifestations that might be sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, criminal exploitation, domestic servitude, etc. Either way, all instances or manifestations of modern slavery really include two basic elements. So there are two elements which are common to all forms of modern slavery. And that is firstly, the deception or coercion of an individual. And secondly, the deception or coercion is for the purposes of exploitation. So this report really does focus and zero in on labour exploitation, but we appreciate that other forms of modern slavery can be present on licensed businesses or licensed premises. But yeah, the focus really is on labour exploitation. So we think about some examples of how labour exploitation might manifest on licensed premises. Victims might be forced or deceived into working and being controlled by a trafficker who gains financially from them. Victims might be working long hours without breaks, be housed inappropriately or in inadequate accommodation, have wages deducted from their pay. Traffickers might use psychological tactics to control their victims. Their passports or other identification documents might be withheld. They might be forced to pay their wages into someone else's bank account. Or the victim might even owe a debt to the trafficker because of accommodation costs, possibly because of recruitment costs, travel arrangements, and in almost all cases, this debt is impossible to pay off, which is specifically called debt bondage. So it's important to note that modern slavery does exist on a continuum. On one end of the spectrum, you might have minor labour market infringements, such as, working overtime without pay and kind of increasingly more labour market infringements on one end. And then the other end, you might have really extreme forms of physical, mental, emotional kind of abuse. So exploitation, modern slavery does exist on a continuum of exploitation, but it's important at every stage that it is identified, because earlier forms of exploitation might be indications of more severe things that can't be seen on the surface. Also, just to say is that, anyone can be a victim of modern slavery, but there are some characteristics or some things that might make workers, employees, or subcontracted staff more vulnerable to exploitation. And that could be things like if they have an insecure migration status, homelessness, so if they're rough sleeping, rough sleeping specifically, or kind of other forms of homelessness. Language barriers, especially if English is not their first language, you can imagine it might be difficult to access support. If they've been asked to pay recruitment fees, they're connected to a large organization and recruitment fees are illegal. And individuals who lack a social network, so isolation is a big form of or a big indicator of modern slavery. So individuals who do lack a social network and are isolated make them more vulnerable to exploitation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the scale of the problem. By the end of last year, 16,938 people were referred to the National Referral Mechanism. And for those that don't know what the NRM is, it's the UK system for identifying and supporting victims of modern slavery. So specific agencies have the power to refer people to the NRM to access support as victims of modern slavery. However, it is estimated that there are over 100,000 victims of modern slavery in the UK, according to the Centre of Social Justice. So that means really we're only identifying about 17% of victims. And so the large proportion of victims remain unidentified. And so that, because of this, we really believe in the power of licensed businesses as kind of the eyes and ears of the community on the ground to really see those potential victims or potential crimes that might not be immediately visible to kind of public bodies or criminal agencies. Of those 16,938 victims, 25% were UK nationals, 41% experienced labour exploitation, so almost half of them were labour. 14% experienced sexual exploitation, and an estimated 2 million workers are currently in vulnerable employment in the UK. So quite staggering statistics. And so what we're doing about it, we released this report because, like I said, we believe in licensed businesses as kind of the eyes and ears of the community, and people who are really embedded in kind of, the local community and local networks. And so we hope that through working with licensed teams and businesses, we can really kind of start to chip away at that 100,000. So if you go onto the Shiva Foundation website, you'll be able to access the full report. And the report is organized as follows. Section 1 explores how national licensing guidance can be strengthened to prevent modern slavery across the UK. So really focused on kind of national licensing guidance. And so that section of the report contains a list of recommendations for national government. And really excitingly, we're in talks with the Home Office and other bodies and individuals on the possibilities of updating that guidance. So that's a watch this space. That's got watch this space status written all over it. And we should be able to provide an update in time to come. Section 2 looks at how local councils can update local licensing policies to directly address modern slavery. So that specifically looks at local council leadership, how my committee members work with kind of senior licensing officers, managers to update local guidance, local policy or statement of local policy to kind of address it from a more strategic perspective as well. So very kind of comprehensive report, and we recommend reading that one as well. And then section 3 focuses on the importance of awareness raising amongst licensed businesses, how to build the internal capacity of your licensing teams to kind of deal with modern slavery in their daily operations. And so, yeah, the webinars are really focused on this final section of the report, and it contains a list of suggested activities for local licensing enforcement teams. Yeah, so like I said, these 3 webinars are focused really around the third section of the report, how local licensing teams can practically confront modern slavery in their daily operations. And just to say that this section is split into 3 further sections. So we've got capacity building, aka training, which we spoke about on Tuesday, 2, raising awareness amongst license holders, which is obviously today's webinar. And then the third one is partnership working with law enforcement, which will happen on Tuesday. So that's also very exciting. And we have an amazing guest speaker to talk about the work that they're doing as well. So very, very exciting. For today's webinar, we will look specifically or look quite closely at recommendations 13, 14, and 15 of the licensing report, looking at raising awareness kind of with license holders. Okay, so I'll tackle the first 2 together because I think they're quite closely linked. So recommendation 13 says extend modern slavery training for license holders to high-risk licensed premises. And then recommendation 14 is to provide license holders with modern slavery guidance documentation during routine visits and inspections. This guidance should provide information on the different types of modern slavery, how to mitigate it, and how to report concerns. And so, you know, during the course of our research, we've seen that some organizations did both of these things. And so that's why we grouped them together, did both training and provided guidance materials. But in the absence of training, we found that some organizations provided guidance material, which was also quite effective. One of the contributors on this project said the following: more could be done to educate local businesses on what modern slavery is and how it applies to individual businesses. The license sector is currently an untapped resource that could support that. And so, like in the last webinar on Tuesday, we spoke about the power of training licensing officers on modern slavery and how that could, you know, empower them to empower the license holders that they work with, but also the other positive outcomes that flow from that, including kind of a more interconnected approach across the organization when tackling a modern slavery and the impact it could have on other departments or other licensing teams working with other licensing frameworks as well. Working with licensed businesses more closely on modern slavery risks, particularly to their businesses, really is a method which not only increases their awareness as businesses within the local community, but we also believe can foster more trust, a bigger relationship of trust with licensing officers and teams who are training them as well. So it's all about relationship building, which we think is really important and quite foundational to this research that we've been conducting. Okay, so to provide a little bit of the context around local businesses and what they're doing, awareness of modern slavery among local businesses, including licensed businesses or premises, is still low and in some cases non-existent. Recent research has identified that 1 in 5 SMEs are unaware of the Modern Slavery Act, and of those that are aware of the Modern Slavery Act or aware of modern slavery more generally, 46% have advocated for more specific information from the government on how to become more compliant, which will encourage them to make it a higher priority on their own business agendas. So this shows that businesses are not, you know, they're at least willing to listen or engage with authorities in order to tackle modern slavery, according to the research. And we've also seen that local councils already have experience in delivering training or guidance material to a range of license holders. You know, for example, the training given to taxi drivers on child sexual exploitation. There's already kind of a framework there that exists, which could be expanded to also include other forms of modern slavery as well. During this study, we did also come across examples of kind of license holders who are provided training, you know, from the hotel sector, from kind of other nighttime economy venues. So we're already seeing this kind of expansion of training and guidance across other sectors as well. Okay, cool. And the example that we included is from Watford Borough Council, who have mandatory training to taxi and private vehicle drivers, but on child sexual exploitation, but also expanded it to other areas. Their training also includes the provisions of a handbook and knowledge checks. So testing is important. Feedback from license holders on modern slavery training tends to be quite positive. And in this case, taxi license holders reported being more aware of safeguarding issues and able to better spot crimes and acts of abuse, as well as inform the right authorities. They also disclosed a renewed commitment to being more vigilant, aware of their surroundings, and using all the knowledge in their role as a taxi driver. So expanding this training and guidance to other high-risk sectors can have a similar effect, we believe, especially those that kind of are higher risk of modern slavery. Okay, so licensing authorities, we believe, are in a prime position to raise awareness of modern slavery amongst the license holders that they work with, especially given that their engagement with businesses is kind of a standard part of their day-to-day role. And we felt like delivery of modern slavery training to license holders by authorities should cover these kind of four basic elements, or should include a basic understanding of these four elements. Firstly, the signs or indicators of modern slavery. And so training that touches on the signs might ask license holders to think about, are their employees experiencing restricted freedoms of some sort? Are the workers on their site, do they seem to not be in possession of their passport or other travel documentation? Are they unable to move freely? Are they scared of being handed over to the authorities? Perhaps their employees never speak for themselves, or the people that they might have employed for in agencies have a limited or no social interaction. Do they show fear or anxiety, or have they had to resort to crime to get food or money? Perhaps the employees don't know their home address, or they've heard of their staff members living in quite poor accommodation, or don't have choice as to where or who they live with. Perhaps their staff are rarely left alone, or the license holder might have noticed that a group of their workers are picked up from their premises and taken to their accommodation, even though they don't seem to be friends. Or perhaps their workers are reluctant to speak to them or seek any help of any kind. So it's really important that training to license holders includes signs of modern slavery so that on the ground they can identify it. Also, what steps to take to mitigate the risk to their businesses. So that might be, or it might include encouraging license holders to promote awareness of workers' rights, ensuring that every worker has a contract in their own language, possibly putting up posters, sharing information about joining unions. It might be encouraging reporting practices amongst staff on their site. It might include conducting internal checks on their own internal systems to ensure workers' wages are paid directly into their own bank accounts instead of third parties. And if their organization is working with kind of a payroll provider, working with that payroll provider to do a similar thing. It might be encouraging licensing holders to commit to upholding high ethical standards. For example, encouraging them to voluntarily publish a modern slavery statement, especially if they fall below threshold, obviously, or creating a kind of ethical code of conduct or practice. Ensuring that if license holders are using recruitment agencies, those agencies are not charging recruitment fees to secure employment at the license holder's premises, or at the licensed premises. So if they're working with labour providers, those labour providers also have the correct licenses to be able to supply to that sector, that they're not on kind of any prohibited lists, and the labour providers have adequate reporting mechanisms even within their own agencies. We also encourage that, the training also includes how to report issues if kind of a worker does have a challenge, or if the license holder has noticed something on their site, and where to seek support with any potential cases identified. So alongside any internal reporting processes, the license holder should know, obviously, who to contact if they're facing something. The police in an emergency, perhaps the GRA intelligence team, and the modern slavery helpline are all avenues that license holders and their staff should be aware that they can contact. And so, yeah, training really has a dramatic impact on improving the awareness of local businesses, facilitating increased identification and the prevention of potential, future cases of modern slavery as well. Related directly to training is the provision of guidance documents, which we have seen as quite standard practice amongst the licensing authorities that were involved in this project, to provide kind of license holders with guidance material, even when they couldn't, provide direct training. So, the guidance documents in this case will kind of cover these 4 points, even if you're not able to directly train them on it. And so I felt like I should show you a few examples of really great documents that you could share with license holders to raise their knowledge. There are a number of pre-existing resources, which could be quite general, but also quite specific to the sector that you might be working, kind of targeting. And so, yeah, they could be used by licensing teams to give to license holders, and they're free to download, so please do download and share widely. So the first that I'll talk about is the SHE Foundation and the SHE Foundation's SME Toolkit, which we did in collaboration with Stop the Traffic. This free toolkit is specifically created for SMEs in consultation with business experts, and includes key features such as a simple risk assessment, practical steps of how to protect employees, but also agency staff, and clear guidance on how SMEs can report indicators or instances of modern slavery. The toolkit covers 6 different areas, and I'll briefly explain, I think it's important to briefly explain each of those sections, and how that might be useful guidance for licensing holders who are also SMEs. So section 1 is on relevance to SMEs. So this section will outline how businesses, including SMEs, might be affected, so that your SMEs or your license holders, organizations, know why it's relevant, specifically relevant for them to reduce their risk. Section 2 is on risk assessment. So this section provides a very quick tool, easy to use quick tool for assessing a license holder's modern slavery risk, so they can focus the efforts and target responses. We know, most SMEs have limited resources. So if they're in a position to at least target a few areas which are at risk of modern slavery within their organization, within their businesses, conducting a risk assessment is a great way to do so. So section 3 is on protecting kind of their employees, directly employed employees. And this section recognizes that modern slavery can occur on a license holder's premises or even within their workforce without their knowledge. And so this section provides kind of practical steps on how to reduce the risk of modern slavery affecting, their employees. I mean, we would hope that it wouldn't be the license holder, delivering, actually exploiting, but in cases where that isn't happening, it can still happen on their side, even without their consent. And then section 4 is on protecting agency workers. There is obviously increased risk if they're outsourcing labor. So this section provides practical guidance on how, or what questions license holders might be able to, ask labor providers. And it also includes a list of checks that license holders can ask, their labor providers or can work through to ensure that, agency workers that come to work within their organization, within their business, isn't also experiencing modern slavery. Section 5 is on reporting incidents. So this section provides a clear guidance on how to report concerns if a license holder or business leader suspects modern slavery is happening, how they should report it. And then section 6 is on supply chains, obviously recognizing that SMEs and potentially the majority of license holders within your local area might not have the buying power as, the same buying power as large companies that address kind of whole supply chains, or at least tier one of their supply chains. This section does provide some quick steps for SMEs, small business leaders, kind of small license holders for kind of smaller premises, to prioritize which areas of their supply chain they might want to target. So it's quite a good resource, I think, although we're biased. But yeah, good resource. It's quite extensive and it's not boring to look at. So it's easy to understand, and it's quite engaging in the way it's designed as well. So it's not, inaccessible. So that's the SME Toolkit. Stronger Together also have various resources which you can access via their website, a plethora of resources that touch on accommodation, touch on transport, they touch on child labour, forced labour, freedom of association, how to set up kind of grievance mechanisms, migrant workers and the specific risks there, how to support migrant workers, supply chains, also they touch on that. So they have some great resources to share. So Stronger Together is linked in the report, the licensing report, but also you can find them via a Google search. So you can share any of these resources as guidance material with the kind of license holders that you work with, especially those that are kind of in higher risk sectors or higher risk, licensable sectors, right? To upskill them to understand what is modern slavery, what the risks of modern slavery, and how to mitigate it as well. Cool. So recommendation 15 is focusing specifically on publicity material. And this recommendation says, provide license holders with publicity material in relevant languages on modern slavery, which can be displayed publicly. And publicity material include anything from posters to leaflets to business cards, and it helps raise awareness primarily amongst kind of the employees or the staff on site, but also with the wider public. So it serves as a reminder to employees of their rights, but also raises awareness amongst the general public. Like I said, kind of licensed businesses can be, or businesses generally, kind of the eyes and ears, like, of the community. So some of the councils we worked with on this project have provided publicity materials to at least one cohort of license holders. So alongside possibly taxi and private vehicle operators, we saw some interesting cases of publicity material as kind of air fresheners being hung from kind of taxis with relevant information and leaflets within the back of the chairs when taxis, quite interesting stuff. But alongside that, we saw a few case studies on providing publicity material to hotels, nighttime economy staff, and special treatment menus as well. It's also important to note that the language used on any of these publicity materials should be reflective of the language spoken by the workers on site or the employees on site, the staff on site. And if you're really good, should be spoken by, the majority of clients that might visit that establishment as well. Cool, so here's some examples of posters and publicity material, again, all linked in the report. So the Gang Masters and Labour Abuse Authority and Unseen produce posters which can be used and available in 15 different languages, which is great. So these posters can be shared with license holders to put up on their establishments. Again, all the websites are linked in the report. The great thing about these posters is that they're designed by experts in the space who know what they're talking about. So you can be sure that the information on these posters are accurate. And it also saves you time and design costs by downloading pre-designed materials from kind of other organizations' websites and sharing those with license holders as well. Cool. So I just wanted to share a few of the case studies that we talk about in the report. So one of the contributors on this project shared that Brighton and Hove City Council provided local hotel and bed and breakfast license holders with police leaflets and child sexual exploitation materials. The leaflets contain information on how the abuse manifests itself, the indicators and the steps to be taken by managers if any staff encountered a potential problem. So again, quite extensive leaflets which were shared. At the time that we wrote this report, there were no reported cases were following the kinds of decimation of the leaflets. However, licensing teams did revisit the premises after providing these leaflets in person to find out whether any child sexual exploitation issues arose, but also to assess staff awareness of the issue on site as well. So I think it's a really great example of the investment in not only providing the materials, publicity materials, but also following up and regularly engaging with kind of license holders, regularly engaging with the businesses within the communities to ensure that they're educated on modern slavery, to ensure they're educated on exploitation, so that if this case ever does come across their premises, they're able to kind of pick up on it. Okay, so we also have a case study from the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. In the past, there has been a modern slavery condition added to special treatment licenses in specific instances. So we speak more about conditions in report 2 and how they might be used to tackle modern slavery, especially kind of in high-risk businesses. So I won't address them here. Highly recommend if you're interested in conditions and how they can be utilized that you take a look at the second report. You might find something interesting there. This condition required some special treatment license holders, such as massage parlors or sex entertainment venues, to ensure a stop the traffic poster is on display in a prominent position where the therapists and the staff can see it. The condition also stipulates that the posters should be available in different languages, and quite similarly to the training piece we just spoke about, cover the main aspects of exploitation, such as kind of the confiscation of identity documents, threats, control, the monitoring of movements, wage deductions, working and living conditions that might be substandard. So in this case, when premises are inspected, the licensing officer who has gone out for that inspection, they would know whether there's non-compliance with that condition, and then the relevant processes kind of following up as well. So they kind of took it a step further and embedded publicity materials within the conditions for certain licenses. So quite another interesting case study. Cool. So just to summarize, that was kind of a whistle-stop tour of part of section 3. And mainly just to, in summary, 1, the awareness of modern slavery kind of among local businesses, including licensed premises, remains low. Many local businesses, including those with licenses, might lack awareness of the prevalence of modern slavery, which will really hinder their ability to identify and address the issue within their operations. Secondly, the license sector is an untapped resource that can support raising awareness of modern slavery. Licensing bodies and processes present like an underutilized opportunity to educate and engage local businesses on modern slavery specific issues, which they're doing in kind of other areas. So yeah, it's a potential force for good and a potential force for raising awareness amongst the local community and local businesses. 3, modern slavery training for license holders leads to increased awareness and vigilance, hopefully enabling them to spot signs of modern slavery and report incidents. Providing training to license holders can empower them with the knowledge and tools to recognize indicators, encouraging them to be more vigilant and to really kind of stomp out the crime in their local communities. Number 4, licensing officers can play a vital role in embedding modern slavery training and guidance documents into their routine engagement with license holders, really making it a regular and expected part of the license process, even for potential future license applicants or future license applicants. And then 5th, publicity materials such as posters and leaflets can raise awareness not only within the organization, so among kind of employees and subcontractor staff, agency workers, etc., but also with the general public. So it's important that they're in the relevant languages to kind of reach a diverse workforce. Cool. So that's a whistle-stop tour, 35 minutes. I hope you found that useful. I see that we do have some comments in the chat, so I'm going to quickly see. Okay, so if there are any questions, so first, can you send us a link to the booklets? I'm having trouble locating it. So they all should be in the report. So in the footnotes section of the report, we've linked them there. So hopefully you'll be able to find them there. If you still can't find them there, God, I hope that's not the case. Please email any one of us and we'll send you a link to those directly. So here we have where can we get training for license holders. So we do run training at Shiva Foundation for SMEs locally in collaboration with Stop the Traffic. So based on the SME toolkit, we can provide training as well. So get in touch with us and we can provide that. If you do want more kind of tailored specific training, maybe to a specific sector, which will require us to kind of do some more research and actually create the resources for that specific sector, we can definitely do that. And that'll fall kind of under our consultancy services. So feel free to scan the QR code if you do want more tailored training. If you prefer kind of more generic training to kind of SMEs, yeah, we can definitely deliver that as well. So do get in touch with us. What should we do if we don't have the internal capacity to deliver training to license holders, which is the case across most public sector bodies? I would suggest probably going down the guidance material route. I mean, it's not the same as training, but you can provide a lot of the same information that you do provide in training within these guidance documents and material, which again, kind of a lot of them are freely available to download. I think I've answered that next question. The next question is, what would you say are the higher risk industries for modern slavery? So again, I think they should be listed in the report, but they're quite standard ones and, across kind of local authorities, special treatment venues are always high risk, according to research. Certain alcohol and entertainment industries we've seen in our research are quite high risk as well. Certain industries kind of related to like fisheries or certain types of farming as well could be quite high risk for modern slavery. And if you go onto the GLAA website, they have kind of a list of industries that are seen as kind of high risk, but those are 3 examples. And then the last question is there a CPD certification for this training? There isn't, unfortunately, but like I said, we do deliver kind of more, we can deliver more kind of specialist training. But if that's something you're looking out for, please do email us and maybe we can have a conversation about it moving forward. Great. And then I think there's a comment in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, no, that's from us. Okay, great. So if that's all the questions, I just want to say a huge thank you for coming over to this webinar. Like I said, we do have another one that's going to be slightly longer next week, Tuesday, because we have a guest speaker that's doing incredible work in the licensing space and kind of addressing modern slavery. So please do sign up to that webinar and hopefully see you all then. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you for coming. And yes, the webinar will be recorded and shared online directly after this course. So you should get an email with a link directly to it. Thank you.